This is the most ferocious death fleet in the universe. They fight on different planets all year round. Whenever they conquer a planet with life, they will frantically plunder all resources and all adult males, and then they will start a powerful and arduous race to completely turn the planet into a Death Star. Finally, they will build all the captives into killing machines that must obey orders. They are called Death Messengers and are loyal to a ruler named King Marshall. He was originally just an ordinary person, but since he went on a pilgrimage to the Stargate alone and returned, he has become a powerful birth that can easily strip people's souls. No one is his opponent, so he ignited the ambition to conquer the universe and constantly invaded other planets in the Milky Way. Now most of the Milky Way belongs to him. On the surface, he is an interstellar overlord that no one dares to mess with, but in fact, there is someone who can make him sleepless because there was once a prophet who predicted that King Marshall would be killed by a man with the heart of a revenger in the future. King Marshall believed it to be true. In order to block the prophecy, he led the Death Fleet to destroy the Vengeance Star first, killing all the people on the planet. However, he didn't know there is another survivor on Vengeance Planet, and this person is Riddick. Now he is the most sought-after criminal in the universe. Since escaping from the monster planet, Riddick has been living alone in this polar land for 5 years. The beast's instinct combined with Teja's vision gives him unparalleled combat power. On the planet UV Week 6, a blizzard was flying. Riddick jumped and ran between the high walls, daring to flee madly without looking back, because he was being hunted by the strongest bounty hunter in the universe. The bounty hunter seemed to underestimate his ability. Riddick jumped and easily avoided the attacks again and again. After escaping from the monster planet, Riddick has been living alone in this polar land. He has not told anyone for 5 years, but now the bounty hunter has found him. He decided to find out what was going on, so this time he pretended to be hit by the other party, trying to lure the bounty hunter into the steep canyon. Expectedly, the other party was not on the list, so Riddick had to stand arrogantly at the entrance of the cave and took the initiative to provoke them. The captain of the bounty hunter was furious and risked driving the spaceship into the canyon. However, the wing was less than 1.5 meters away from the rock wall. They could only move forward slowly, looking for Riddick's figure, but they didn't know that they had turned from hunters to Riddick's hunters. Not long after, Riddick started to fight back against the bounty hunters. It was the familiar terrain to cleverly get rid of the gutters hanging on both sides of the wing. When he was about to evacuate, Riddick had already sneaked into the cabin without anyone noticing and began to criticize the stupidity of the hunter captain. Riddick easily subdued the hunter captain, showed his knife and asked him who had put the bounty on him. Facing the threat of death, the hunter captain spoke without restraint and soon confessed the truth. He was actually the task leader of Xiaoyangsing Street and had put a bounty of 1.5 million on Riddick's head. When Riddick heard the name Xiaoyangsing, he couldn't help but be shocked because the missionary and the little girl he had saved lived in Xiaoyangsing. Considering that he was a fugitive, in order not to implicate the old and the young, he asked the missionary to take good care of the girl, and he had been living in seclusion here. Only the missionary knew his whereabouts. It was obvious that he had been betrayed. The angry Riddick kicked the captain off the spaceship, snatched his spaceship, and flew directly out of the UV galaxy. No. After a long flight, the spaceship finally arrived at the planet where the classroom was located, but at this time, Xiaoyang Star was in a level 4 alert state. As soon as the spaceship entered the other side's airspace, it was intercepted. The pilot signaled him to land immediately for inspection. As a wanted criminal in the universe, Riddick could not withstand the inspection at all. So, Riddick went directly around the bottom of the other side's fire, then suddenly raised the fuselage, directly flipped the air over, and then dived down, lowered the flag to avoid surveillance radar, and successfully landed in the heart of this beautiful and rich Xiaonan. When the missionary returned home at night, Riddick had shaved his head and was waiting for him. He wanted to kill this ungrateful guy directly, but the missionary hurriedly explained that he had no choice but to do so, because only in this way could he find Riddick, and he needed Riddick's help. But Riddick did not believe it. After all, who would ask for help in this way? The missionary expressed his deepest apologies until the missionary's daughter and wife appeared. Riddick had no choice but to believe it because Riddick had never met them before. Not only were they not afraid, they also called out Riddick's name, and his daughter could even tell Riddick's heroic deeds. This was enough to show that the missionary had not forgotten his kindness. Over the years, he had been grateful and told his family Riddick's heroic stories, so they recognized Riddick at a glance. Riddick finally chose to forgive the missionary, but since he was already here, he also wanted to know why the missionary was willing to betray him and let him come here. The missionary said that they originally lived peacefully on this diverse planet, and recently he observed the sky at night and found that the doomsday predicted by religion was coming. But it was not a natural disaster that destroyed the world, but an interstellar civilization. Considering the importance of the matter, the missionary did not dare to lie and introduced Riddick to the elemental family that maintains balance in the universe. It was he who issued the bounty and led Riddick here. The messenger of the elemental family told Riddick that the universe was facing an unprecedented disaster. A war maniac named King Marshall was leading his death army to various parts of the universe. He destroyed all civilizations along the way and killed all those who did not submit to him. Those who submitted to him were transformed into death messengers to strengthen his own strength. Now King Marshall is about to lead the Death Army to invade this planet. He hoped that Riddick can stop King Marshall. Riddick was confused when he heard it. First of all, he didn't know whether King Marshall existed. If there really was such a terrible person, what could he do to him alone? The serious messenger said that he was eager to find Riddick because of a legend. Legend has it that a warrior from the Vengeance Star can kill King Marshall. When the elemental tribe told the new leader of Shenyang about this rumor, the missionary mentioned Riddick. According to the missionary's description, they inferred that Riddick might be the Avenger back then. So they asked Riddick for help and talked about a lot of reasons to deal with King Marshall, which was nothing more than 2 words: moral kidnapping. However, Riddick did not believe that his life experience was so tragic, and he did not believe that he could save the world. So he did not want to wade into this muddy water and turned around to leave. As a result, he was accused by the missionary, accusing him of being angry and ignoring them just like he did to the little girl. Dick was stunned when he heard this. He wanted to ask for clarification, but suddenly a group of soldiers came to his door. It seemed that he had overturned the spaceship during the day, and it was exposed. Seeing the soldiers being violent towards the family of the priest on the ship, Dick realized that he had implicated his friends, so he had to stay to solve the problem. At the moment when the soldiers fully armed pushed open the door, they decisively extinguished the candlelight for Dick, and then took advantage of the darkness to quickly take action and knock down everyone without the Parliament's time. And Riddick showed special abilities. This just proves that he is the legendary son of Fables, but he is still not interested in saving the world. He cares more about his friends. He just wants to know what happened to the little girl. The classroom ring told Riddick that the little girl is now a big girl. In order to find Riddick, he accidentally killed someone not long ago and was finally caught by a bounty hunter. Now he is imprisoned in the underground prison of Blazing Star. But that place is very hot and it is impossible to survive on the ground. She worshipped you as her older brother. She was supposed to watch her. She never forgave you for leaving. Just what you needed you most. After hearing this, Riddick immediately planned to go to Blazing Star to save people. At this moment, looking from the ground, the sky seemed to be streaked with large comets. It turned out that these were countless space battleships of the Messenger of Death, appearing in the sky above Xiaoyang Star, flying down like a comet and falling rapidly towards the ground. Xiaoyang Star's iron Keong system immediately opened fire, but it could do nothing to them. For a while, the beautiful and rich capital was filled with wailing, and the people were in chaos. Dick stood on the roof and saw a huge mothership in the sky. It smashed into the planet in a crushing posture. Seeing this, Riddick finally believed in the existence of King Marshall. He hurried back to save the ship classroom. In Riddick's heart, he always regarded the ship classroom as one of his few friends. The Death Corps attacked the casino with an unstoppable momentum. The soldiers of Xiaoyang Star resisted tenaciously and finally surrounded one of the teams. However, they did not expect the other half of this battle of medium armored infantry used a very special tactic. They didn't care about casualties at all, as if they were injected with chicken blood. When they were about to die, they directly activated a weapon of mass destruction and died together with the soldiers of Xiaoyang Star. This way of fighting, in which a few lives were exchanged for the lives of the majority, quickly consumed all the soldiers of Xiaoyang Star. The scattered Xiaoyang Star soldiers on the battlefield hid everywhere, but they could always be found. This was because the Death Messenger had a kind of scout. They were brainless like zombies, but wearing blue sentry on their hands, they could sense the hustle and bustle, leaving the enemy nowhere to hide. The missionary and his family were discovered by the scout when they were hiding. In order to protect his family, the missionary ran away alone to lead the enemy away, but he ran into a dead end. A Death Messenger officer chased him with a warrior in his hand. The missionary, who had nowhere to escape, took the initiative to stand up and fight the enemy to death. When Riddick returned, he was still a step too late. He only saved the missionary's wife and daughter, and the missionary was killed by the officer of the Death Messenger. Seeing his friend's tragic death, his anger towards Dick was ignited. He vowed to avenge the missionaries. After a night of fierce fighting, all the new soldiers of Xiaoyang were wiped out. King Marshall conquered another planet. His death army had a large number of teachers and advanced technology. The Grand Victory Parade was held in the square to show off to the civilians on Xiaoyang. King Marshall was domineering and looked at all this with satisfaction. The East Station planet was just his first step. Next, he would summon the representatives of the masses of this planet to brainwash them, destroy their hearts, reshape their beliefs, and persuade them to join his fleet to replenish the consumed soldiers. Marshall's evolutionists explained their purpose to the people of Xiaoyang, hoping that they would accept the transformation and then go to the dark sky together. However, Xiaoyang is a planet where multiple religions coexist. In their view, King Marshall's death army is a cult, which is invading the entire universe under the banner of religion. Therefore, the people of Xiaoyang are unwilling to betray their beliefs. Some people even publicly expressed their dissatisfaction with King Marshall, and they looked like they would rather die than surrender. However, King Marshall would not tolerate it. If they couldn't do it, they would come to him. King Hill inserted his hand into the body of the rebel and directly grabbed his soul. Seeing this scene, the people of Xiaoyangsan were immediately frightened and lost their souls. They called it the mark of the messenger of death. They would enjoy the pain and then be transformed to prepare for their rebirth in the dark interstellar. Dick knew that those who were determined would be sent to a strange secret room alone, where brainwashing would completely wash away the power of faith in them. Dick didn't know that he had fallen into a trap. After the queen brought him to the center of the secret room, she quietly retreated. As the queen closed the door, she took out a dagger from Dick, wanting to see what tricks they were playing. However, the next second, the evolver activated the hidden mechanism in the statue. A powerful force instantly sucked his dagger and his entire body firmly. No matter how he moved, he couldn't move. The next step was to start brainwashing by force. However, before brainwashing, his memory needed to be read to find out his identity and background. Therefore, the stage biometer scanned his cerebral cortex and read his memory at the same time. King Vizier was full of confidence, thinking that he had gained another powerful hero, but he unexpectedly unearthed a shocking secret. He was so scared that his face changed. The scan results showed that Riddick had an extraordinary background. In his memory, there was actually the shadow of the Avengers and an elemental. The evolver who was watching the show nearby was also shocked. King Marshall was completely panicked. He knew that the Avengers were his nemesis. Final scan results showed that Riddick was the only survivor of the Avengers. It seemed that the prophecy of Nazar was about to become a reality. King Marshall felt guilty and ordered the soldiers to get rid of him quickly. In the critical moment, the evolver, contrary to his usual behavior, secretly helped Riddick and released the imprisoned Riddick, which also gave Riddick a chance to fight hard. As for why the evolver helped him, Riddick didn't have time to dwell on this issue. The most urgent task was to escape from this dangerous place as soon as possible. Even if he escaped to the street, the battleship soon caught up with him. King Marshall wanted to eliminate his enemies at all costs. At the critical moment, two shells suddenly flew in the darkness and turned the battleship upside down. The one who saved Riddick was none other than the bounty hunter who was kicked off the spaceship by him before. They found this place based on the tracker on Riddick's spaceship. However, the bounty hunter did not come to save him, but to capture him in exchange for the bounty. After all, Riddick was a famous fugitive in the universe. Logically, it would be a piece of cake for Riddick to capture them, but he thought about it and chose not to resist this time, but to surrender obediently because he was worried about not having a spaceship to escape from Xiaoyang Star. He thought it would be a waste not to take this ride. Then he took the bounty hunter's spaceship and fled the planet. The two thugs on the spaceship were very excited. They were still immersed in the huge bounty that was about to be in their hands, but they had no idea how big a hornet's nest they had just stirred, because Commander Wacko had already located the whereabouts of Riddick and his group through scouts. In order to be foolproof, King Marshall sent his capable men, but Wacko went with the evolvers, and this time they had to get rid of Riddick. King Marshall believed in fate and thought that Riddick was the only threat. He knew that the green grassland had grown to his head. Wacko had tested King Marshall more than once, but every time he'd approach King Marshall quietly, King Marshall's demigod body would give an advance warning. Now King Marshall's nemesis appeared, and his and the Queen's chance had finally come. On the bounty hunter side, the captain of the hunter was thinking that a strong man like Riddick must not be imprisoned in an ordinary prison. Riddick deliberately said that what he feared most was going to the prison on the Blazing Star. In fact, Riddick hoped that he would be imprisoned there too, so that he could rescue the imprisoned girl. And the bounty hunter's destination is Flame Star. It can be seen that in addition to his courage, Riddick's intelligence is also outstanding. After a long flight, the bounty hunter's spaceship successfully arrived at Flame Star. Flame Star is a place more terrible than hell. This planet is divided into two hemispheres, day and night. The day hemisphere burns under the scorching sun, with a surface temperature of up to 789 degrees, while the temperature of the night hemisphere is as low as minus 306 degrees. The surface is definitely uninhabitable. The prisons are built deep underground. It is simply a natural prison. Even if the prisoners escape, they cannot survive in such a harsh environment. Moreover, the day and night hemispheres are still changing at any time. The bounty hunters want to successfully land the spaceship, so they must race against time. The spaceship has been burned with billowing hot air, but fortunately, after a period of turbulence, they narrowly avoided the sun and finally arrived at the prison hangar. People with live ammunition were needed to guard him. They were going to imprison him 30 kilometers underground. There was an unusual prison below, and no one could escape. Only such a prison could be worthy of Riddick's status. But the bounty hunter sitting on him obviously thought this was a bit alarmist, and he began to taunt Riddick arrogantly and threatened to take his goggles for himself once the mission was completed. Little did he know that this successfully annoyed Riddick. How could Riddick tolerate his bad habit? He suddenly pushed him out of the tunnel car with his knee strapped, and he fell to death on the spot. Seeing this scene, other bounty hunters were not panicked, but extremely excited because in this way, they would have one less person to share the bounty. Soon they arrived at the destination, the entrance to the prison 30 kilometers underground. The cell door slowly opened, and another group of takeover personnel came out. After completing the handover of the prisoner, he immediately sent him deeper into the underground prison. While the hunter captain and the warden were discussing the reward, however, the warden cut the reward from 2 million to 800,000 on the grounds of collecting management fees. The captain of the hunters thought the price was too low, so the two sides had a disagreement in the bargaining and almost came to a fight. Seeing that the bounty hunter was not easy to bully the warden, he quickly proposed a new solution. He let the bounty hunter live here temporarily and gave him 3 days to consult his boss. In order to express his tough attitude, the captain of the hunters only gave the warden 1 day to consider, so you can stay as my guest. The prison here is full of a group of extremely vicious criminals, just like all prisons. When the old prisoners saw the newcomer report, they couldn't help but start clamoring, planning to make some trouble and want to teach the newcomer a lesson. Obviously, Riddick also understood this truth, but he didn't take it seriously at all, because the next scene would make them completely stunned. He was indeed very arrogant, but there were still prisoners who didn't like him, so they could only take advantage of the situation to teach Dick a lesson. In a few seconds, he knocked down several invading enemies. There was someone who wanted to sneak attack, but the next second he was locked by the throat with a chain. Before Riddick could react, the attacker was killed on the spot, but he never expected that the one who helped him was actually a woman. Riddick saw that the woman looked familiar, so he took off his goggles to see clearly, but the woman turned and left. The prisoner investment saw that Riddick was extraordinary and came over to extend an olive branch to him. Riddick directly refused because the purpose of coming here was not to go to prison, but to find someone, so he didn't want to pay attention to him, but just said lightly, "I'm just passing through," which meant that he was going to escape. This surprised the prisoner investment. You know, this is the Flame Heart. Even if you escape from the prison, there is still a high temperature of 700 degrees waiting for you on the surface. Escaping in such a harsh environment is tantamount to suicide. Obviously, this prison is a permanent hell, but Riddick, who was deep in hell, doesn't take this environment seriously at all. Just like an emperor hesitating in his own back garden, he even regards this place as his home and starts to enjoy taking a bath. When he came out of the bath, the ground-handled knife was against his waist, and the woman appeared from the dark, but he didn't do anything cruel. Instead, he was pulled in front of him by Riddick, and then lifted up. However, the woman was not a pushover either. He quietly spit out a blade from his mouth, made a feint to the east and attacked in the west, and in an instant he escaped and disappeared from the spot. Riddick's face had a slight scar. The woman's name was Kayla. She actually knew Riddick for a long time. She was the person Riddick came to save this time. She was the girl who used to be in tears. At this time, the prison broadcast announced the opening. The prisoners immediately became nervous and noisy. They were not worried about not getting food, because the prisoners were not the ones who started the crime, but the several brutal and manic flaming hands released by the prison guards. Once this beast was enraged, the thorns all over its body exploded and emitted flames. The speed of movement was very fast. No one who was caught by it survived. In this case, if you want to save your life, you can only take the initiative to lock yourself in a cage. In order to reduce the cost of the prison, every time a new prisoner arrives, the prison will hold this kind of cruel activity to start clearing out the extra sick prisoners in the prison. The warden has been using this method to control the population, but at this time, Kayla encountered trouble. There was a flaming hand in front of him. This did not scare Kayla away. Kayla stretched out his hand flexibly and was not panicked at all. He avoided the danger with familiarity. Obviously, he had already adapted to all the dangers here. The screams of the prisoners were endless. The remaining prisoners fled into the cages. Riddick, who had just arrived, did not want to get into the cage. He hid alone in a hidden corner, but was soon blocked at the entrance by a flaming beast. He took off his goggles to Dick, revealing a shining take sperm oath. The flaming beast seemed to have noticed this, and slowly poked his head in and looked directly at Riddick with his ferocious eyes. Unexpectedly, Riddick actually responded with his own white eyes, but the next second the flaming beast stayed where it was. There seemed to be some kind of magic in Riddick's eyes. The originally ferocious flame beast was as obedient as a puppy in front of Riddick. He thought that something was wrong with the flame beast. Suddenly, the siren sounded again. The flame beast was reluctant to return to the cage. Before leaving, he did not forget to show his ferocity to give the leader of the prisoners a warning. What a violent guy, it's an animal thing. As soon as one wave stopped, another wave started. Kayla was blocked in the cell by several prison guards again. They were about to search him to check if he had any weapons. Of course, this was an excuse. The real purpose was to take advantage of him. They played crazy tricks on Kayla's chess players, but they didn't know that the woman in front of them was not an easy person to deal with. She kicked the opponent's tools to pieces with one kick, and then made a few cold and raw operations, which made the man faint on the spot. The other prison guards were shocked when they saw this. It turned out to be a prickly beauty, so the three of them rushed up and beat Kayla up. Kayla fought back quickly to protect herself, but she was no match for the four men and was eventually defeated. She was pinned to the ground and rubbed by several people. Riddick couldn't stand it anymore and walked over slowly with a teacup in his hand, warning the three prison guards to take their companions away before he made a move. Unexpectedly, the other party relied on their numbers and the fact that they had a sharp weapon on them and didn't take his words seriously at all. He subconsciously looked at Riddick with a new eye. He asked Riddick who he was and told Dick that it didn't matter. What mattered was that he had a way to leave here. If he wanted to go out, he could just follow him. The prison leader said helplessly that no one could escape from here. Hearing this, Riddick stopped wasting words. He wanted to prove his strength with actual actions. He ain't nobody. Kayla's opinion of Riddick had improved. He believed that no difficulty could stop him. Soon the opportunity came. The bargaining between the bounty hunter and the warden finally had a result, but the premise was that they had to spend money, because the guards had just detected a warship of the Death Course in the sky above the Flame Star. Needless to say, it must be this group of bounty hunters who had not gone offline and hijacked the prisoners with bounties from the hands of the Death Messenger, which provoked the other party's worship. The Death Course was famous like a locust passing through. Wherever it went, there was only death. Therefore, these prison guards were very afraid, and no one wanted to provoke the Death Messenger. Therefore, the warden refused to pay the bounty hunter's reward. The captain of the hunters believed that these were all lies. The purpose was to embezzle the bounty of him and his teammates. So the two sides immediately turned against each other and started a fierce exchange of fire. The people below looked up and saw the rain of bullets in the control room above their heads. After a round of firepower confrontation, both sides suffered heavy casualties and even turned into ruins. The hunter captain lost his wife and his soldiers. Seeing that all his accomplices were wiped out, the hunter captain immediately grabbed the rope and wanted to escape from the battlefield. When Riddick saw the hunter captain, he realized that the people above might be almost dead. He finally couldn't bear it anymore. He knew that his chance had come. It was time to start implementing his jailbreak plan. So he started to sprint 100 meters on the spot and jumped directly onto the hunter captain. The money should have been taken. Dick stepped on the hunter captain's head, revealing his tendon muscles, and climbed up the rope to the top control room. There was nothing else at the scene except the mess. Dick saw the death of King Magil on the tablet and the Legion had chased to the Flame Star. He understood what was going on and there was no time to lose. He immediately opened the cell door and released other prisoners who were willing to follow him. When he picked up the monitoring equipment, he found that the elevator they took when they came here had been damaged in the transfer station. The warden was taking some guards through the emergency passage and walking to the parking bay 30 kilometers away. Only the spaceship left by the bounty hunter could escape the planet. This was the only way to leave the Flame Star. All the passages leading to the parking bay were blocked. Riddick and others could only walk on the surface of the harsh environment to avoid the high temperature of more than 700 degrees and use the speed of the super step guards to control the spaceship in advance. But the hunter captain who came to join in the fun thought that this was impossible. No one could run that fast. Of course, Riddick did not forget the benefactor who brought him here. Without saying a word, he directly locked the hunter captain in a cage with flame beasts on both sides. Time was very tight because the sun was about to rise. He immediately took action on Dick and raised the control type to the ground. It was decided to go to the parking bay through the ground vent. Everyone was stunned for a moment. You know, once the sun rises, the surface temperature will rise to more than 700 degrees. If it is exposed to sunlight for more than 3 seconds, the flesh will turn into dust. Anyone who can keep up with his speed can follow him. If you are afraid of death and your speed is slow, you can choose to stay here. Although everyone thinks this is too risky, there are still 5 brave prisoners following Riddick. They race against time to run towards the landing cabin. In the underground passage, the warden and some guards are also running at full speed. A group of people on the ground are stepping on the rugged rocks, with faces rolling under their feet and the blazing sun spreading behind them. The speed of the people is incredibly fast. Relying on their mortal bodies, they are running forward madly. The temperature is getting higher and higher. They can already see the blazing light on the horizon, spreading like a phoenix spreading its wings. Everyone is racing against death more frantically. The road ahead is getting steeper and steeper. Riddick is running in the front, and not only is he at ease, but he even doesn't forget to be cool. But unfortunately, the fact is that they were halfway through their journey when they were discovered by the guards again. They took the underground secret passage of the prison, which was safe and fast, so they rushed to the front and immediately raised the Imperial treasure to prepare to ambush them. But when they counted the number of people, they found that Riddick had disappeared. Little did they know that Riddick had arrived first and was waiting for them with his meteor hammer above their heads. Without being hit, he sent the guards to the northwest. The Jade Clan immediately launched an attack on them. The battle between the two sides broke out. Although the Jade Clan had the advantage, they suffered heavy casualties. The warden had to give up the interception and order the guards to lower the bunker and hurry on their way. Although they successfully repelled the guards, they were delayed for a few minutes. In just a few minutes, the sun was about to rise from the horizon. The sunlight behind them was getting closer and closer, and the terrain became more rugged. They could no longer run. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you in the next video.